Friends, thank you for watching my channel. I just want to remind you, if you need wallpaper, go to www.wallpaperboulevard.com. Tell them Spencer sent you. In fact, if you use my hashtag, Spencer Colgan is wallpaper, they'll be sure to give you a 10% off at your checkout. No matter how much you order, they have a wide selection of wallpaper. Check it out. Tell them I said hello. Hey, this is Spencer Colgan, and welcome back to Spencer Colgan is Wallpaper. Many of you write into me when I do my wallpaper removal videos. What about the paste? What about the residual glue underneath the wallpaper that remains? Well, let me show you what you can do in order to get it down. It's a sloppy job. You have to cover your floors, and you have to be prepared for a real cleanup, but it's actually quite simple. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I just removed 2 layers of wallpaper from the wall that you're looking at. And in various places you will see a yellowish tinge. For example, right here. What you're actually looking at is residual paste that if you take a scraper, and I don't mean a metal one, I mean a plastic one. If you take what's called a paint edger, I got this at Harbor Freight, let me show you how easy it is if you wet the walls down sufficiently to get this paste, this residual paste off. Watch this. Now, take a note of the angle at which I'm using that scraper. If I go any higher, I risk gouging the walls, and then you have wall repairs. Do you want that on your wall if you're going to paint it? No. Let's continue. You may remember on some videos past, I introduced this machine that I said if you remove wallpaper for a living, you want to get this machine. All it is a paint sprayer. And I use this to wet down the walls so that I don't have to expend so much energy with a pump sprayer. That's right. You plug it in and you spray your walls down in a controlled environment. You don't want to make a mess of your floors, particularly if you have hardwood floors. This is a tile floor, an ideal situation for my paint removing water sprayer. You see all that yellow residue on the left of your screen? Let's go get that off. You definitely don't want to be leaving this paste on the wall if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be painting. If you're going to be wallpapering, as long as it doesn't create ridges, you can leave this on because you're just going to reactivate it by putting new wallpaper on it, which is fine. Now, how about something like this? It's a little thinner here, right? But you can see what would happen if we let that dry. You see that nasty ridge there? Look at that. We better get that off. Let me show you what to do. And there's no gouging of the wall. Let me bring you up close. That's perfect. You don't want to keep scraping at your walls. They're vulnerable when they're wet. Even the finest paint, if you wet it enough, it's going to become vulnerable to the point of coming off. Now, I didn't take that paint off, but pulling on the wallpaper certainly did. Now, this is something any do-it-yourselfer can do because it doesn't require specialty skills. If you start scraping this, well, then you're going to have to know how to skim coat. Nice and easy. You see? So you ask the question, do I have to get the wallpaper paste off of the wall? There's only 2 times you must get it off. One is if it's forming ridges, and whether you're wallpapering or painting over it, the ridges are going to show through your wallpaper, or certainly through your paint, which means you have work to do to make it smooth. The way to smooth it is to simply remove it. See, this was a ridge, now it's not. So those are the 2 times. If you're wallpapering, certainly you could leave the paste. As long as the removal process didn't wet it, it liquefies it, and then it turns it into a situation where you accidentally made ridges on it, then you would have to get them off. But if you were careful not to disturb the paste underneath the wallpaper, and it's nice and smooth, well, then you can go over it with new wallpaper. If you're painting, you certainly want to take a light, shut all your lights off, and then shine a light up and down the wall to see any imperfections that may be caused by paste. Okay, you see we have a ridge here. See that? And we're going to have to fix that with joint compound after we're done. I can tell it's a plaster ridge. Oh, I could try to sand it down with my sponge. But as you can see, all I'm doing is eroding the skim coat layer. This is a skim coat layer that's on the wall. It's best to let this dry and just fill it in. As you can see, when you're getting the paste off, some of the backing from the old wallpaper still remains. But a gentle hand will get not only the residual backing off, but also the paste that remained. Here's an easy way to get it off. After you wet it down with your sprayer, abrade the top layer of the paste with your sponge. What I mean by that is loosen it. You'll be here all day if you try to get it off with a sponge. And then with your scraper, get the rest off. See that? That's all. And then let it dry. After you let this dry and you got your paste residue off, check it out with a light, and then take a pole sander and just standing on the floor, not on a ladder, you want to just go back and forth with a pole sander to get off any loose particles and let the wall dry, and then assess your situation with regard to whether or not you need to do a skim coat or if you can start painting right away. You may be able to paint right away. Okay? Those blotches on the wall are the few casualties from having removed the wallpaper. That's it. The rest of the wall is intact. We got our paste off with our scraper and water. Now we need to let it dry. That's it. If you have any questions about removing wallpaper paste, leave them below. Thanks for watching my videos. One last thing. If you were going to paint over this and you wanted to ensure that you had no issues with regard to painting over this, and you said, I don't know if I got it all off, here's what you could do. Take an alcohol-based primer, shellac, or an oil-based primer, Kills Original, for example, and just get yourself a very fine roller and roll one layer of primer over this to make sure that any residue of paste that may remain on the wall, and I'm not talking about gunky residue, I'm talking about a thin layer, so that you don't have spider cracking in your finish coat of your paint. Just go over it with an alcohol primer or an oil primer, and then let that dry for at least 2 hours, and then you're ready to paint. Make sure you don't make a stippled effect with your roller. Shellac will tend to do that if you roll it with a cheap roller. Shellac gunks up. The best shellac, my opinion, is Bin, B-I-N, B as in boy, I-N, from Zinsser. Or, if you want to go really inexpensive, get yourself a gallon of Kills Original. It takes a little longer to dry, but I think the price differential is worth it. And before I let the wall dry, I just go all around the wall now, wiping down with a sponge and just hot water. That's it. Look how nice and clean it comes out. Making sure not to disrupt any of the already in need of repair breaches that we have, such as the one you're looking at. You just let them dry. The surface gets hard again when you let it dry thoroughly. And if I were you, I'd put a fan on the surface so that you can accelerate the drying time. And you can feel on your sponge how little paste is on the wall when you're wiping it down, because you did a thorough job with your plastic scraper. Okay? Just like that. Wipe it all off and continue to dip your sponge, making sure that you get the residue off of the sponge, because this starts to gunk up with the paste. Now we put the fan on the wall, and when that dries, I take my can of primer, Bin, B-I-N, And you see this area here? I just spray over it. It's dry in 3 to 5 minutes, and then I just put joint compound over it. After the joint compound, I let that dry, and then on top of the joint compound, I put guards, G-A-R-D-Z. And then I'm ready to paint or wallpaper or whatever else I want to do with this wall. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.